Howdy everybody, it's Lisa, Quilting in the Valley. We are gonna do our first month of our mystery scrap quilt. First week of our mystery scrap quilt, which is gonna be either a lap or a queen size. You get your choice of setting. You can set it straight or on point. You are going to do 27 2.5-inch strip sets of 3. So 3 strips sewn with fabric times 27 for the queen size and 17 for the lap size. So again, that's with the fabric strips. If you don't have a with the fabric strip in your scraps, like this one isn't quite with the fabric, you just make sure you have the equivalent. So here I'm loading onto my AccuQuilt strip cutter. I have you can see that's not gonna make 2 strips because it's not quite fitting on there, but it'll make a strip. And here I'm putting that one on there. You need to make sure that you do not come over this line or it won't cut because your blade doesn't go past that line. Okay, and then I got another one I'm gonna put in here. And they're all different lengths, but whatever, the point is I need the equivalent of 27 sets of 3 2.5-inch strip sets with the fabric. So if I have fat quarters, then I would need twice the strip in the fat quarter. If I got 2.5-inch strips out of 1 fat quarter, that would be the equivalent of 1 with the fabric strip. So you just need to figure your with the fabric equivalents. So again, I need 27 times 3 would be, what would that be, 81. I need 81 individual 2.5-inch strips if I'm gonna make the queen size, and then 17 times 3 would be, what would that be? 30 and 21. I'm gonna need 51 2.5-inch strips for, if that's right, I'm not sure, I'm doing math on the fly. The equivalent of 27 stitched together sets of 3 2.5-inch strip sets, 17 for the lap. Additionally, you're going to need 2.5 yards of background fabric and 4 3/4 yards of background fabric for the queen. So 2.5 for the lap and 4 3/4 for the queen. So here we go. I already started some of my strip sets. So I have 1 strip set sewn already. You need 27 of these with the fabric or the equivalent, 27 of these for the queen, 17 of these for the lap. All right, now we're gonna put our strips together. Let's see, let's use this one and this one. All right, so here I am, I'm using my 1/4-inch foot. I'm gonna line my strips up together. I wanna make sure I have a nice 1/4-inch seam. Your strip set, when it's finished, should measure 6.5 inches wide. 6.5 inches, and that will only happen if you have a good 1/4-inch seam allowance. So by the time you stitch these 3 sets together, you would lose a full inch in seam allowance. So 1/4 inch in one seam and 1/4 inch in the other seam. So you have 7.5 total inches of strip minus your inch seam allowance. You should end up at 6.5 inch width for this strip set when you're done. It's very important that you be at 6.5 inch width. So test out that 1/4-inch seam allowance. Make sure that you are good on your 1/4-inch seam allowance. Not a scant 1/4-inch seam allowance, a 1/4-inch seam allowance. Okay, so I'm sewing the whole length of this down this way. And to make sure that my strip set does not go wonky on me, when I sew the next one on, I'm gonna start where I finished and sew back the other way. So this one is gonna go this direction. I'm gonna get my 3-piece strip set done here. So down one way on the first set, so down the other way on the second set. Again, making sure I'm getting my 1/4 inch seam allowance. So stop and adjust as often as you need to as you're stitching down on this. We were going through our scrap basket here at the store, and my goodness, we had a lot of bright colors, and quelle surprise, many aquas and teals in our scrap bin. Quelle surprise. Oh my. So our quilt here, our Scrappy mystery quilt here, is going to be bright and happy and have a lot of aquas and teals in it. It is what it is here at Quilting in the Valley. All right, so now I have a second strip set left. Just as a reminder, if you are making the queen, you're going to need 27 of these. 27. If you're making the lap, you're going to need 17. If you're making the queen, you're going to need 4 3/4 yards of background fabric. If you're making the lap, you're going to need 2 1/2. When you get your strip sets done, you're going to come over here and you're going to, well, not here specifically, but you're going to come over and press them, and you're going to make sure that you press that seam nice and straight, and you're going to press both seams in the same direction. So the way to do that is to set your seam to begin with. So make sure your seam is set, and that is just relaxing the thread and the fibers into that so that when you go to press out, it's a little easier. Okay, so I am pressing out, and you notice I am not ironing. I'm pressing along the seam, and I'm pressing open that seam with my fingers as I go after I've already set that seam. So here I'm coming along. Getting that nice and pressed out. You want a nice flat seam. If you don't have a nice flat pressed seam, what will happen is you will not get your 6 1/2 inch finished width. So I'm going to set my next seam. So that's all nice and relaxed, and now I'm going to iron this out the same direction as this one. So I want both of my seams pressed out the same way. They want to be facing the same way. Okay, I'm using our Panasonic cordless iron, which, as you can tell, retains heat for quite some time before you have to plug that back in. And it makes our life a little easier because we don't have to have a cord dangling. Okay. That one wanted to flip over on me a little bit. Okay, so I have my seams are both pressed in the same direction. So they're both going this way. I have a nice straight strip set because I sewed one direction one way, the other direction the other way. I'm going to make 27 of these for the queen, 17 of these for the lap. 27 for the queen, 17 for the lap. All right? That is all we're going to do this week. Next week, we will show you the next step. See you then.